During the offseason, Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice had gotten into a physical altercation with his then fiancée. In fact, there was footage of him and his fiancée at the time in an elevator in Atlantic City. We want to show that to you, and then I'll give you more details.
So obviously she's knocked out unconscious there, and he's trying to figure out a way to drag her back into presumably an apartment. Clearly he hit her before cameras started rolling there, before the elevator doors opened, and he hit her obviously hard enough to knock her out, and then he's trying to figure out how to carry her. TMZ started TMZ Sports. They caught that, of course, got it leaked to them, and now it's out there. And so 2-week suspension is about as light a suspension as obviously you can give a 1-week suspension, but
it's a 2-game suspension. I
Right.
don't know if it's a game a week, and that's why you
yes,
say 2
that's
weeks.
right.
Okay.
Okay. So as we all know, if you get suspended for marijuana use 3 times, you get a 4-week suspension, 4-game suspension, right? even if the marijuana use is in off season. So there's obviously something wrong here. I mean, that's obviously chilling video.
It is legal, in quite a few states.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what if you're playing at Mile High Stadium, and it's legal in Colorado to be Mile High? Okay, but you can get suspended for 4 weeks. That's not legal anywhere.
In this case, you have someone who literally knocked out the woman that he was about to marry. He did end up marrying her, which is amazing.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, they got married a month later.
Right after the indictment. Literally a day after the indictment. But actually, those things might not be it might not be a coincidence. It might be damage control, right? Maybe. So now she's, of course, turned around and is on his side. Oh, but I hit him too, and then they're pursuing charges against her because she also hit him, right?
He took the hit a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, it appears, right? But you see,
It's going to be a hell of a divorce when it inevitably comes.
Right.
Yeah.
So in order to make all this good, he winds up marrying her, right? And in which case, she's probably going to be enormously wealthy at some point. And she's 100% supportive, and he only gets a 2-week suspension. Everybody continues to make money, including the NFL. I assume that the NFL thinks that there are mitigating circumstances, such as the wife being 100% on his side now. But the evidence that we see there on tape is pretty damning. I would have at least given the same suspension as a drug offense, as a marijuana offense. You got to go at least 4 weeks there. It's actually stupid to not do the 4 weeks, no matter what you think of the ethics of it.
Maybe the NFL was just trying to save her a second beating for getting him suspended for so long.
Yeah. Well, that goes to Stephen A. Smith's point.
Yeah.
Because Stephen A. Smith, of course, can't help himself. So he jumps in the middle of this.
Yes.
And as usual, says the most obnoxious things any human being can say.
So let me give you a little sense of what Stephen A. Smith had to say about this case. He's, according to Business Insider, after saying that it is wrong for men to put their hands on women, ESPN host Stephen A. Smith goes on to say that he has always encouraged female members of his family to make sure we don't do anything to provoke wrong actions. Smith later says that women need to do their part in making sure that violence doesn't happen. Now, let me give you a little more. I want to give you his exact quote as opposed to people paraphrasing what he had to say. On ESPN, he said the following: "We got to also make sure that you can do your part to do whatever you can to try to make sure it doesn't happen. We know they're wrong. We know they're criminals. We know they probably deserve to be in jail. In Ray Rice's case, he probably deserves more than a 2-game suspension, which we both acknowledged. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that we learn as much as we can about elements of provocation. We've got to do what we can to try to prevent the situation from happening in any way." I don't think that's broached enough, is all I'm saying.
And I don't think it will be after this, considering what happened.
Well, I don't understand what he's saying. I've heard people say, hey, you know what, don't walk down a dark alley and don't be alone at night, don't wear a short skirt, all these things that some will say is blaming the victim in case of rape, and others will say, no, I'm just telling, like, if it was my daughter, I wouldn't walking down a dark alley at night. It doesn't justify the guy who did it, but I just want to protect her. In the case of domestic violence, I've literally never heard it. I mean, how do you provoke domestic violence? There's not a dark alley in your house. Like, what is he saying? Shut up. Yeah. Don't talk back against your man. What is he saying? I don't even understand what he's saying.
He doesn't clarify that at all. I watched the ESPN
she hit him,
clip.
Right?
She says that she hit him. I don't know if that was what he was referring to, but that's the thing. Stephen A. Smith doesn't clarify what he's referring to. And so I totally agree that any type of physical altercation is totally unacceptable, regardless of who does it, whether it's a man or a woman. But when it comes to men and women, there's obviously a little bit of a power imbalance. And what I mean by that is men are obviously stronger than women in most cases, not all cases. So in this case, he knocked the shit out of her, right? And so if you use this story to make your point about how women are provoking domestic violence, you're using a really, really bad example. Yeah. You're talking about an NFL player. Yeah. Who's obviously bigger and stronger.
And by the way, I mean, like we can sort of like debate what he meant philosophically based on what he said, but I did take note that he said he probably deserved more than a 2-game suspension. Mm-hmm. No, he definitely deserved more than a 2-game suspension. That's some bold journalism from ESPN right there.
Now, Stephen A. Smith, the A stands for asshole, is what it stands for, on almost every issue. So he is the same guy with, blaming basically Trayvon Martin in that situation. Why? I don't know why. I don't know what goes through his stupid head, right? But he thinks he's being so, even-handed and like, black people need to not assume that Trayvon is right just because he's black, but nobody assumed that. We looked at the facts. Unlike you're a knucklehead. You don't look at the facts. What did you do? You assume that Trayvon is wrong because he is black? I mean, he got shot. But it's, slightly similar theme. Trayvon is dead on the ground, never had a weapon. Guy with a gun killed him. He says, well, don't assume he's right. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe he provoked it, right? Mm-hmm. And in this case, there's someone knocked unconscious on the ground, and he says, well, in essence, he's implying maybe she provoked it. Because sometimes women do things that get this reaction, and they should watch out not to do those things so we don't have to knock them out.
Yeah,
right?
And by the way, I agree with half that argument. Women shouldn't do those things. So if a woman thinks it's a good idea to slap a man or hit a man or do anything physical like that, it's unacceptable. But it's up to the man to be the bigger person, both, mentally and physically, and not hit her back. You divorce her, go to couples counseling, you got to handle it in a different way because you're physically stronger.
So 2 things about that. Number one, it doesn't have to be just gender-based. So if a 13-year-old kid punches you in the arm, you have an obligation as a grown-ass man not to knock him to the other side of the room, okay? Because you're much bigger than him. So he was wrong. He punched me in the arm. But you're a million times more wrong if with your great strength you punch him in the face. Yeah. It's common sense, right? Second of all, you're letting him off the hook. I don't think he was even referring to her hitting him. He never said it, okay? He just talked about provoking the guy. Look, the sense I got from what he literally said was, women sometimes they drive you crazy. So don't drive the guy crazy, right? No. That does not in any way justify hitting a woman. He's so fake too. He loves ginning up controversy because that's what he gets paid for. Fake controversy. He doesn't even really believe half the things he says. Everything he says must be shouted, right? And he thinks controversy or having a stupid point of view is by definition being honest or genuine. It's not genuine. You yell about everything, and he's pathetic. And so here he is again, and what he does is he stirs up controversy, and then he goes, what? Oh, I'm such a interesting, controversial figure.
He feels like people are misrepresenting what he had to say. One of his colleagues, Michelle Beadle, responded to it and said, what he said in that segment was absolutely unacceptable. I was in an abusive relationship once. I'm aware that men and women can both be the abuser. To send a message that we not provoke violence or provoke is wrong. Violence isn't basically the victim's issue. It's the person who's carrying out the violence against the victim, right? So Stephen A. Smith saw that, and he felt, oh my God, I'm being misrepresented, so now I need to really clarify it. And he did so through a series of tweets, and I want to read those tweets to you. I'm not going to read you all of them, just the ones that kind of summarize what his point is.
Could you yell them for us?
So he says the following: if a man is pathetic and stupid enough to put his hands on a woman, which I have never ever done, by the way, of course he needs to pay the price. Who on earth is denying that? But what about addressing women on how they can help prevent the obvious wrong being done upon them? In no way was I accusing a woman of being wrong. I was simply saying that the preventative measures always need to be addressed because there's only but so much that can be done after the fact. Once the damage is already done, nothing more. My apologies to Michelle Beadle. He also says, and any woman out there who misconstrued what I said, I have always and will always find violence against women every bit as horrific as women themselves find it. Always have, always will, which my personal behavior exemplifies. I'll strive to be more articulate in the future, but be clear, I wasn't blaming women for anything. I was simply saying to take all things into consideration for preventative purposes, period.
I still
That
don't know
doesn't
what he
explain it.
means.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't know what he means by preventative purposes.
Yeah, give
He's
an
saying-
example.
Okay,
Say
he's
what it
saying
is.
if you're hanging out with a huge person who's on steroids, whose job is to hurt people every weekend, maybe you shouldn't piss them off.
Yeah.
Or choose somebody different to hang out with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're saying don't hang out with Ray Rice, okay, well then say it, right? Because I mean, I didn't get that from what he's saying. And if he's saying don't hit him, well, that's actually your best defense. Say it.
Yeah.
But he never says it, right? He's going to say it later because it is his best defense. He'll pretend it was about that later, okay? Basically, what he seems to be saying is don't piss him off, okay? And that's not acceptable, man.